Welcome to Quick Tips for thinkorswim. I'm Connie Hill. Today's quick tip is using the RSI and the relative strength and understanding the difference. What we talk about today is intended for educational and informational purposes only. Don't consider a recommendation of any sort. I'm going to have you come over here to my charts where I've got a stock up called Chevron. You're probably familiar with Chevron. What we want to do is talk about RSI initially. RSI stands for Relative Strength Index. If I come over here to my studies and I simply just type in RSI, it'll come up here right at the top, and that's the one we want. I'm going to go into the gear, make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. All right. Now, the RSI has values from 0 to 100, and it stays within those parameters. It also has an overbought zone at 70 or higher and an oversold zone at 30 or lower. And the purpose of the relatives or the RSI is to give us an idea of momentum, strength of momentum, and even if maybe momentum is starting to change a little bit. A divergence can be identified on the RSI, and a divergence, there's a good model of it over here. Over here on the price, the stock's been making some higher highs and higher lows here in February. However, the RSI is making lower lows. And when we see it doing the opposite of what price is doing, like in this case, it's called a divergence. Now, a divergence could indicate that things are going to change. It doesn't mean they absolutely will change, but it kind of is a yellow flag to say, hey, get your antenna up, things might be changing here. And so even though the stock was going up and this RSI was making lower lows, after the stock peaked, then yes, finally we saw the selling off of the stock. So in this case, was the divergence indicating a potential reversal? Yeah, it was indicating it could happen. But typically traders are going to wait for confirmation, which did not occur until a few weeks later. Now let's talk a little bit about the relative strength. And I'm going to go into my charts and studies. I'm going to hide this RSI we've been working with. We're going to type on relative, there we go, relative strength. And the relative strength simply is going to look at our entity, in this case Chevron, and compare it to something else. The default comparison here is the SPX, which is just fine. Again, I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger so we can see it well. And let's go ahead and I'm going to, we'll just say okay. There we go. So now we have the relative strength, and what it is doing is comparing our entity, whatever we have in here, Chevron in this case, comparing it to SPX. If the trend is going up, it means the entity, or in this case Chevron, is trending better or more bullishly than the SPX. If it is trending downwards, like we can see all through here, lower lows, lower lows, lower lows, lower highs, right? A big long stretch of time. It means the SPX was actually outperforming Chevron. Now here most recently, it looks like Chevron went through a nice little spiel here in the month of July, maybe starting to uptrend a little bit more, although down here initially on this particular day. Now, you don't want to confuse the two. Remember, this is just relative strength against whatever is sitting in here. Now, suppose you wanted to do something like use something different than the SPX. Maybe you've got a real technical stock, you might want to use the NASDAQ. In our case, because Chevron happens to be in the energy group, let's go swap that symbol out for the sector group of energy. So we're going to type in here $SP 500 pound 0 or 10. and that'll give us the energy sector. Now it'll be interesting, we can see, is Chevron outperforming the overall index or industry group or sector here in this case or not? Now it's kind of interesting because during this period of time, it looks like maybe it was downward trending, had a brief period of time where it was outperforming the overall sector. But then most of the time when it was lagging on the SPX, it is also lagging here on its sector comparison. All right. Now, what do I hope that you get out of this is a way to use both of those studies. You might not want to use them together because it could be a little bit confusing, but just understand they have different purposes. And if somebody says, hey, let's look at the relative strength of this stock or whatever you're looking at, just make sure that you know if you're looking at RSI, relative strength index, or if you're looking at the relative strength that's a comparison.